everybody. Welcome to our first Business Bites of the year. I hope everyone is having a fantastic Wednesday so far, and I'm very excited to see everyone joining us today for another fantastic panel discussion. For those of you who may not know, my name is Nathan, and I'm with Haunted House here in Newport Beach. If you see me around, feel free to say hi. And as a quick background, Business Bites is a collaborative virtual series hosted by Honest Access and Haunted House. If you're not familiar, Honest Access is an innovation consulting firm based in Southern California, and Haunted House is a flexible co-working space and cafe with locations in both Palo Alto and Newport Beach. Now today, I do encourage you all to use the chat feature at the bottom to engage and ask any questions throughout the session. And as a quick starter, how about we have everyone go to the chat box right now and comment where you're tuning in from. We'd love to see where audience is coming from. So go ahead and on the chat feature on the bottom, you see, go ahead and type where you're tuning in from. Now today, I do encourage you all to use the chat feature at the, oh, sorry about that. As a reminder, this session is being recorded and will be posted on our YouTube channel and sent out via email within the next week. And with that, I would like to hand it off to our amazing moderator, Kelly from Honest Access, to welcome our panelists today.
Thanks very much, Nathan. And thank you to our live guests and anybody tuning in afterwards on the recorded session for Business Bites. Welcome to 2022. We've been really grateful for the experience of Business Bites, which we started at the beginning of 2019 as a community give back initiative. And these sessions are a volunteer initiative. The guest speakers that are sharing their expertise and advice today, as with all of the Business Bites sessions, are volunteering their time and here contributing on the topics our audience is asking for. So if there's something that you're interested in learning about in business, in professional development, in hiring, staffing, startups, or innovation, do please let us know in the post-event survey and share with us how we can bring value to your professional lives. That said, we're here today to talk about Professional Development 201, the advanced series of professional development, really learning to leverage the tools of social media for professional networking and business goal achievement. We're joined today by an incredible panel of experts who are going to be sharing very specific answers to questions related to social media. That said, we're thrilled to have you all here, and we do want to encourage you to save your questions if you're part of our live audience for the chat open Q&A at the conclusion of today's conversation. That said, let's welcome in our special guests and give them an opportunity to talk with us. We'll begin with you, Rhonda. If you could just share a bit of information about your background and share with our audience today a little bit about your connection to this special topic of professional development.
Thanks so much, Kelly. So I have been an expert in LinkedIn since probably 2007. I was one of the very early adopters. And, you know, I love the platform because I think LinkedIn is a platform for serving, not for selling. And my passion is really sharing with people how they can use LinkedIn for many reasons, whether they're looking for a job or they happen to be an employer looking for that next employee. But mostly if you are an entrepreneur or a business owner and you're looking to create those relationships so that you can stay top of mind with people and you can also generate appointments for those virtual cups of coffee to get to know people. So I have written 5 books. I've spoken to thousands of audience, thousands and thousands of people, upgraded more profiles than I can count. But really and truly, my passion is teaching people about how to not be in what I like to lovingly call the LinkedIn Witness Protection Program, so that people will find you. And when they do, all of their questions will be answered. So I'm really delighted to be here and share some strategies, some tactics, and some tips on how to leverage LinkedIn.
Thank you so much, Rhonda. Next up on our esteemed panel, we are thrilled to be joined by Dr. Austin. If you could share a bit about your background and your connection to this topic for our audience, we'd appreciate it.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks, Kelly. I'm Dr. Chaz Austin. I hold an EDD from Pepperdine University. That's the same degree as Joe Biden has. I'm a leadership coach, and I also train people to self-market in the gig economy. So I'm working both sides, both the bosses and the workers. I work with individual clients, and I teach courses both in person and virtually. I'm the poster child for LinkedIn. I have over 32,000 followers, and it's become my main source for finding clients and new opportunities. And what I do is I teach my clients and students how to use social media to further their careers.
Thank you so much for that introduction and for spending your time here. Our final panelist brings a tremendous amount of value. We're excited to hear from you. Kimberly Jones, if you could share a bit about your connection to this topic.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you, Kelly, for inviting me to be here today. I really appreciate it. I've worked in workforce development for over 30 years. I have worked within one-stop career centers. I've worked for nonprofits. My husband and I have had 2 businesses, most recently a healthcare staffing company. And I'm currently working in higher education. I feel like I'm at the other end of the spectrum. And one thing I want to correct is I recently left Simmons University. I was there under contract. So I am in need of a job. So I am going to be sharing, I'm going to be listening today. But I have a passion. When I was at Simmons University, we were fortunate to be given the Gallup personality inventory. And I'd taken different personality assessments in the past, but it was confirmed through a number of different experiences that my top skills of empathy and connection are so real. And that is the one thing that I utilize and market the most when I'm doing what I do. I love people. I love connecting with people. Another skill is developer. And I love helping to bring people and their skill set to fruition. So I am just a humble servant, approaching one person at a time, encouraging them. And ironically, that's how Kelly and I met. She did some work at Simmons, and I shared quite a bit during her seminars, and she's invited me to participate. So I'm just hoping I can share my perspective, my experiences, and encourage someone today. That's always my goal, to be encouraging to someone.
Thank you so much, Kimberly, and thank you to all of our panelists. I think hopefully if you're an audience member, what you're hearing from this is we're never one aspect of our identities, and our online personas reflect varying attributes that we bring to professional settings, to personal relationships. And I spend a lot of time talking about community building and ecosystem building, and the role that ecosystem building has in our professional lives is increasingly important. I think it's really interesting to hear all of our speakers talk about their connection to social media, in particular to LinkedIn, but whether we're talking about Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, all of these professional platforms are about creating connections and identifying points of resonance. And we're likely to be the educator and the educated, and sometimes, as Kimberly said, both at the same time. So thank you all for being here. Let's start off with our questions. If we can move to our very first question, I'm going to come back to you, Rhonda, and ask, what role do you believe social platforms, including LinkedIn and Twitter, play in professional networking and career development?
Well, I can't really speak to Twitter since I don't play in that sandbox, but when it comes to LinkedIn, if you think about the last 2 years where, we've basically gone virtual. Now maybe we've gone a little bit more towards hybrid. But, the one thing that I do know is that people are 2 times more likely to believe what they find on LinkedIn than any other place on the internet, whether it's your website or anything else. So I think the role that LinkedIn plays is multifaceted. Number one, it gives us an opportunity to learn about the people that we are interacting with in our professional networking. We can look and see, where did they go to school? Where did they volunteer? What are their personal interests? What's their background? I was fascinated when I looked at the profiles of our panelists. I grew up in Boston, so immediately I already have something in common with our panelists, right? I know where Simmons University is. I think that the platform of LinkedIn is huge because it allows us to reach out, not just nationally, but internationally, both for the purpose of networking, which is just growing our relationships because we never know where the referrals come from. And in career development, you never know where that next opportunity is going to come from. So the biggest thing that I believe with LinkedIn is show up dressed for the party. And what I mean by that is make sure you have a LinkedIn profile that tells people who you are, what you do, how they should interact with you. Make it have a call to action and give people an opportunity to get to know who you are in that about section, because you never know where that next potential referral, client, prospect, or job is going to come from. And yesterday I had a call from somebody that said, I reached out to you because out of the blue, somebody reached out to me looking for a high achiever coach. And I only work with high achievers. And I realized that I was not showing up on LinkedIn like who I was. So I think it plays a really big role. And the one thing that I would say to everybody is go out and Google yourself and watch what happens. There's a 70% chance that your LinkedIn profile is going to show up on the first page of Google. So that's going to play a part in how you network, both for your career or to generate new business.
Thanks so much, Rhonda. I'm going to come to you now, Dr. Austin, and ask the same question.
Social media is the 21st century way to find work. How you use social media, what the mix of platforms is, depends on identifying and reaching your target audience. Where do they live? Mine lives on LinkedIn, but I also have Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter accounts, and that needs to be a baseline for anybody in business to have that kind of social media footprint. But for example, if you're a graphic designer, you'd use Behance.net to showcase your portfolio. Katy Perry has 108 million followers on Twitter because that's where her tweener audience lives. Charlie D'Amelio has 132 million followers on TikTok. And Ryan's World, which is the kid playing with toys, has 31 million subscribers on YouTube. So you need a strategy to find out where the people who will pay you for your services are and adjust your social media marketing efforts to that.
Thank you so much. Kimberly, I'm going to come to you now. And you shared that you've been using the social platforms as both an expert as well as a job seeker. And if you could answer this question from that lens today, we'd appreciate it.
Absolutely. So my most recent experiences working within higher ed has been very interesting. Students are busy being students. Oftentimes, though it's suggested they create a LinkedIn profile, they kind of panic in their senior year and they're running around trying to put everything in place. So, my first thought is what a wonderful time to be alive, that we have this place that we can go and see the whole universe. and reach out to them. So most importantly, you have to have a presence. It's suggested that you have a presence. What I tell them is that when there is no presence, or it's minimal, or say there's no photograph, it raises more questions than not. So to create a presence for the sake of, having the opportunity to say, this is who I am, is just really, really important. I too am not as familiar with Twitter and some of these other platforms. But the importance is to start. I always encourage people to start. They look on LinkedIn, they say, well, other people are so much more developed than I am. And even people within my age range who've been working for 20 or 30 years and never really used LinkedIn, and now they're in a panic because they've been laid off or they're in transition. You have to start somewhere. So it's important to have a presence. It's important to be kind to yourself and to start somewhere. It's easy to get overwhelmed when you look online and you see how many people are so much further along in their process than you are. And you have to be kind to yourself. You have to start somewhere. You have to create a presence. That presence will allow you to begin to develop relationship. And you'll hear me say quite a bit, my perspective is, connection is everything. The connection that you make with people, the energy that you bring to a situation is what they will remember about you. So you have to start connecting. You have to think about all those people within your inner circle that you can connect with and reach out to, and just one step at a time, start to build your brand, start to connect, start to post, start to respond, all of the things that the platforms demand. And then from the other side of that, just really trying to establish intimate relationships, because those connections and those relationships are the things that will help you along your journey. I have some examples of that just in how my career has gone, and the low-hanging fruit. I have not read your book, Chaz, but I would imagine that you also talk about targeting those things that are lesser opportunities to establish relationship and use that to go to other places. So it's just really important to have profiles, to connect with people, and then to just continue to establish relationship.
Thank you so much. And I love the three frames on this question, because we heard the importance of getting started. We also heard the importance of reflecting on, once you've gotten started, to think about and reevaluate how others are perceiving you. So this isn't a one time and walk away scenario. This is a relationship, and not dissimilar from public networking. So I'd love to move to our next question. And this time I'll start with you, Chaz. From your experience, can you please share the top tip you would give to somebody regarding the professional use of any of the social platforms that you talked about before?
Yes, I will. But first, Kimberly, just briefly, we're on the same page, and much of what you say about relationships, I absolutely agree with. But to answer the question, top tip: surrender. Stop resisting diving into social media with both feet. It's a tool for finding work. Like your education is a tool, the languages you speak, your cover letter, your resume, it's another tool, not necessarily the answer. Given employers will search you to find your digital media footprint before they ever agree to meet with you, you can use it to learn about them and find ways you can mutually benefit each other. That's tip number one. Tip number two, stop worrying about privacy. There is none, all gone. And in terms of the difference, the bottom part of the question, I don't see a big difference between building a brand and refreshing or pivoting a brand. Marketing is marketing. The way I say it is life's a pitch and then you die.
Fantastic. Kimberly, I'm going to come back over to you. Do you have a top tip that you'd give to somebody?
Do it. Do your, due diligence, create something, start. Stop comparing yourself to everyone else. But after that, I would say, remember to be professional. This is an interesting time in the world. I have been honestly very shocked by former colleagues and people who kind of seem to have lost their minds a little bit. They're putting stuff out there that's so bold, I think because they want to be noticed, but also because there's this trend for people to do something that's different. So instead of fitting into a little box, they're saying things, they're using language, and surprisingly in ways that I never would have thought they would have. But they're making good points. There's a lot happening in society and they're speaking to those things and, they're confirming that it's okay, to be honest. There are a lot of things going on, but I do tell people to be professional. It's not Facebook. You can't put a lot of personal information out there, terribly personal. But there's a balance. You have to be true to who you are. If you've seen my profile, I have a statement behind me that says, be the light. And I say that from a spiritual perspective, meaning my goal is to, touch people and just give them encouragement. That's where my journey is. So, to say, I'm not afraid to say that. And it's never hurt me. It's always helped me. If I haven't written any books and I haven't done some of the things that Rhonda or Chaz have done, but I have my own skills and my own gifts, and I'm very confident and strong in that. And I encourage people to find out what their skills are. And I encourage them, if in any way possible, to complete some type of assessment, just for some confirmation. You know what? I'm in the right lane. I'm doing the right thing. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And really be confident about that and be able to carefully state that, as they're creating their brand, on the internet. Someone who's, I'll stop there.
It's wonderful perspective. And I want to come over to Rhonda, because in your first answer, Rhonda, you shared that even as an expert, you revisited your profile. And so we really want to spend some time asking you for that top tip, but also asking for you to answer in that bottom half. Is it different for somebody who's just getting started, jumping in, as Kimberly said, versus somebody who's refreshing or even pivoting their professional brand? I'm going for a mid-career change, as an example.
It's a great question, because I agree with what both Chaz and Kimberly said. And I think the first thing that I would say is, ask somebody that that knows you, that trusts you. If they were going to give a referral to you, would they still do that based on the fact that they knew that somebody was going to look at your LinkedIn profile? Because a lot of us don't have the vision that we're unattached to it. I hear this all the time. People think, wow, my profile looks great. And then they wonder, why are they not getting the referrals? Why are they not getting found? Why are they not getting calls? So the first thing that I would say is make sure that your profile does tell your story. And I love the way that Kimberly expressed that, because that really does tell people who you are and what you do. And when you ask if it's different for somebody that's just beginning to build a brand or somebody looking to refresh or pivot, the truth is that it really isn't. What you are doing is you're putting your digital footprint out there. And my recommendation is write that LinkedIn profile from the standpoint of who you know is going to be visiting it. So if you are somebody that is looking to generate leads, you want to let people know the results that you get for people like those people that want to hire you. If you're looking for a job, you want to position yourself differently so that the potential employers are going to see you in a light that says, wow, I want to get to know this person. And then finally, this is the biggest tip that I could say. When you use LinkedIn, come from a place of service, not from a place of sales. It's a place where you build relationships. The sales will always follow. And what I found is that there's a lot of people that are doing what I see called spraying and praying. It's, I want to sell you. They don't even know you and they want to sell you. It's really a place to create those relationships. So once you position yourself as the expert, as the only logical choice for the product or service that you offer, then you want to start interacting and you want to start treating it just as if you were in person, but maybe you're going to have those virtual meetings. Always doing it from the standpoint of how can I serve? So the next phone call that I might have with somebody might be somebody that would be perfect for Kimberly. And it allows me to reach out and say to her, I heard of something that might be perfect for you. I'd love to make an introduction. Is this a good introduction for you? So it just come from a place of service, but show up dressed for the party, whether you're brand new or you're pivoting, because we're all pivoting now that the world has changed.
Thank you all so much. And I love the progression of the tips and story from get started, and it's unavoidable. And it is part of the world we're operating in, to embracing the idea of the audience, to remember that this is a digital footprint that's going to stay with us, that it may grow and change, but it should be validated against what you want to achieve and also what is real about you, and really leveraging it for those connections. It's a beautiful journey that we're all on together. And it really is just a beautiful answer to this question in terms of the progressive panelist answers. Thank you. Let's come to you, Kimberly, first on the next question. And this is really about advice. So you've mentioned that you're currently have been doing a lot of work in the higher education space, and you've been working with people who are about to begin for the first time. Oftentimes people who are graduating from university are beginning their social brand or prioritizing their social brand for a new lens. How would you advise people who are beginning to build a social brand online to spend their time? And is there a platform that you recommend to people who are just getting started as the right platform?
Question
So
for me?
Kimberly first, if you don't mind.
Yes, please.
I would add to that professional social brand. They have, I'm very sure, a social brand. I am the mother of 4 sons. The youngest is a freshman in college. Making sure, first of all, I'm adding this on, that there's nothing out in the universe that can come back and bite you later. Being passed out on someone's front lawn during a frat party is not favorable. So I would recommend, I think, as I said before, first of all, that they get started, set time aside to spend on creating your LinkedIn profile. It is a pain in the butt, if you all can remember back when. Starting it and completing it takes some effort. So, get started, absolutely start with LinkedIn. It is the most recognizable platform in the universe. That's exactly what I tell young adults. So, have some dedicated time where you're actually going to work on it. You know, fill in the blanks, have it mirror your resume. The simplest of things, you know, people don't think about that. It's like, oh, I'm going to create this. And then you look at their resume and there's no connection between the two. So make sure there's a connection between your resume and LinkedIn. But once you start to build it, once you start to think about your natural network, you know, who are the people within your circle? Connect with them. It could be, you know, professionals, your family, connect with everyone that you know, and then start to, you know, respond, and then start to post. So slowly, you know, you're creating this cycle of communication. And most importantly, remember that it takes time. Try to stay focused on, you know, what it is that you're doing, what you bring, what your special gifts are. Because I also, probably because of, you know, this time that we're living in, many people are struggling, and, you know, their mental health is in question. So they are naturally saying, I don't have this and I don't have that. So just, you know, take your time, focus on what's good, surround yourself with positive people, and take it one step at a time.
Thank you so much. Rhonda, I'm going to come to you next with this. Obviously, your expertise is in helping people to do this. Is there a piece of advice that you'd be willing to share with our audience around beginning to build your social brand online and prioritization?
Yeah, so in terms of LinkedIn, let's start with when you're starting to begin your social brand online, be consistent. And when I say be consistent, do it 3 times a week. I often give the analogy to people, you know, think of a gym. If you only showed up at the gym once a month, you would really not see results very quickly. In fact, it would take a very long time. But if you are on LinkedIn and you're posting 3 times a week, you're going to be doing it consistently. Now, one of the things that I recommend is that 60 to 70% of what you're posting does not necessarily have to be about your business. What it needs to be is motivational, inspirational, but somehow tied to your business or what you're about. So I would recommend that you know, and if you're stuck, start sharing other people's stuff. There's all kinds of influencers out there that are sharing great things. Take what they've posted, reshare it, but put your spin on it and ask a question. And when somebody comments on a post that you've put out there, comment back. When you see a post that really strikes your interest and you are, you know, intrigued by it, write a comment, like it. And once you start to build your network and you start to build your tribe, for those people that you're close to and you know that they would be interested in what you're posting, tag them. Use the little A with the @ sign and tag them. You know, make sure that you're not doing that in a way that is rude or that you don't know them. But how you build is slowly and consistently, and it should be in alignment with what your values are. There's a great person to go take a look at that I happen to know by the name of Michael Ray. And Michael Ray created a Smile Project. And he has a daughter that is a 22-year-old Down syndrome daughter. And he has literally gone across the country just bringing smiles and kindness to everybody and finding the bright side of everything. That's his whole brand. And it's a nonprofit. That's his platform. You know, and I often will just share what Michael's doing because I know my audience wants to smile. So I would say just be consistent, you know, make it a mix of different kinds of things. If you can't figure out what to do, go look at what successful people are doing and model it so that it'll work for you. And again, you know, make sure, this is the big thing, give credit. So if you're sharing an Instagram photo, let people know that's where you got it. If it happens to be a YouTube video, you know, make sure you tell people where you got it from. Stay within the rules so that you are not stealing anything. But everybody wants to have their stuff shared. We all love that because they get exposed to a bigger audience. And mostly, be genuine, just be real. And when somebody takes the time to like or comment on your post, reach out to them, comment back. That's my advice.
Thank you so much. Dr. Austin, I'm going to come to you, and I just want to emphasize something you shared during the introductions. You have built an exceptional brand on LinkedIn. You shared that you have over 32,000 followers. As I understand it, you've actually reached, LinkedIn has an arbitrary maximum number of network connections at 30,000, and you've exceeded the maximum level of network connections. And so knowing that you have that experience, I'm going to come to you with the same question and ask, how would you advise people who are building their social brand online? And just that frame of how did you get where you are today?
First, I do want to take one step back and just quickly recognize a theme here that both Kimberly and Rhonda have talked about. It's about contribution relationships. And one of my favorite quotes is from Muhammad Ali: "Service is the rent we pay for our room here on earth." And I think that's what, for all of us, this is what's true. Back to the question. For myself, if I'm not doing work that's revenue generating, which is either coaching individual clients or teaching, I'm marketing. This is my professional life. I'm doing one or the other. And the leads and the work are increasingly generated online. One of the exercises I have my students and clients do is to create what I call a time budget. For 1 week, journal in half-hour increments how you spend your time. When the week is up, analyze the results, and you'll notice time that could be spent marketing online. Then you can shift priorities and focus more on the core tasks that will forward your career. As for which platforms and which types of activity or engagement, I recommend to new users, as far as LinkedIn or Facebook goes, join groups. They're a source of information, leads, and mentoring, and new contacts. And the new contact will lead you to new groups, and the new groups to new contacts, and so on. And that's how I've built my network.
It's a wonderful tip. And I think it's an important note for anybody in our audience that may be very new to this, to understand that each platform has an algorithm for what you're able to see on that platform. So your experience in that social channel is really unique to the network that you develop. So the intentionality that all of our panelists have shared about connection is really important. There are, as in the real world, just as there are many different meetups that you can attend in the real world, you're going to get much more value out of real world meetups if you're attending ones that are interesting to you, that match your authentic interests and your authentic needs and goals. The same is true online. Make sure that you're engaging with the people. I think Rhonda called it your tribe. Make sure you're building that network connection with people that are aligned to the professional goals that you aspire to. I think that's a really important element to this work. Moving to our next question, I'm going to come back to you, Rhonda, with this one. Do you have any recommendations or exercises that may help our audience to develop or refine their online profile or brand?
So I love this question. The first thing that I would say is, and I think I mentioned this before, reach out to people that know you, that trust you, that are already referring to you, and ask for their feedback on your LinkedIn profile. Or go to an expert and ask them for, feedback on that. Because in order for you to do what Chaz is talking about, Dr. Chaz is talking about, or any of us, you need to make sure that you're showing up in a way that presents you as the only logical choice for your product or your service. The second thing that I recommend is reaching out to your connections. I'm almost bumping up against that 30,000 as well. And what I like to do is reach out to my connections and invite them to a virtual cup of coffee that is in the no sales zone. I am not selling. I typically just want to know, who are you? How can I help you? And if there's somebody I know that I can refer to you, I would love to be able to do that. So I would say take a little time every single day and reach out to a couple of people in your network and invite them on Zoom to jump on a call and just have a get to know you call and let them know right up front, the elephant in the room, I am not selling you. This is a no sale zone call. And I think that that will actually help people who are a little bit questioning what their brand is. They'll find out in those conversations how people perceive them. And they're going to answer the question over and over again, what do you do? Because that's your introduction. And as soon as you get better at that, your brand is going to define itself anyway. So that's what I would recommend. Number one, get that feedback from somebody else on how you are being perceived. And number two, go nurture your network. You know, if they're just sitting there and you have 30,000 people and you don't know who they are, that's not going to work. But as Dr. Chaz says, you know, marketing is really relationships. So go out and meet those people and get to know them. I have a little practice I teach. It's called 10 before 10. Reach out to 10 people before 10 a.m. You never know who you're going to touch and who you can help and who somebody is going to say, oh my gosh, Kimberly, I know somebody you need to meet. So, or Kelly, I know somebody you want to meet. So that's what I would recommend.
Thank you so much. We've been playing with your name throughout this conversation. Dr. Chaz, this time I'm coming to you.
Okay. Here's how I teach it to my clients and students. 3 points. Number one, define your brand using as few words as possible. This is easily said, but what I do is train people. So it takes a while for people who are not used to self-marketing to get into this headspace. But the first part of it is define the brand in as few words as possible. Number two, learn to articulate it. This includes your soundbite and the headline on whatever social media platform you're using. And they're actually pretty much the same thing. And it's pretty much also the same thing as your objective on your resume. You may change a word here or there, but it's the same message. The third part of it is communicate and market your brand to your target audience. Who would care about and buy what it is you're selling? You're not looking for friends, you're looking for business. Yes, I do not have 30,000 close friends on LinkedIn. They are business contacts for the most part. What's interesting about the soundbite or the headline, it tells you who your market is and who you need to go after. And what you want to be about, that I have a contribution to make to people, and get out of your own way and use social media as a tool to get to people who, once they know you and can work with you and pay you, will say, I'm so glad you contacted me. I so can use your services. Thank you very much for that. You've really helped the quality of my business, my life, whatever it happens to be. So your job is, it's not about you, it's about them. And how do you focus on people who can use and embrace what it is you have to offer?
Thank you so much. Kimberly, I'm going to come to you with the same question, and I want to acknowledge something you shared in an earlier answer. You said that this can be difficult work. Do you have any tips or recommendations in the exercises that you feel are particularly helpful, given the challenge of the work itself and getting started in this space?
Thank you for that. I have to say, I'm just a mushy-gushy person. I'm so thankful for this time and this opportunity, and you all are just awesome. If I could give everybody a hug, I would. So the first thing that I have found, not just with college students, but with folks who've been, working for many years, is they don't understand who they are. Who in the world am I professionally? And how can I articulate or explain what I am, or create an elevator, pitch if I don't even know who I am? So I like to kind of, step back and start from the beginning. And a lot of that is my approach when I'm doing my counseling, coaching sessions with people is, first of all, have you ever completed an assessment? Do you really understand what it is that you're selling about yourself. I know you're a teacher, but what are your skills? You know, yes, you want to pivot to something else, but do you understand what it is that you're going to focus on? So I encourage people to really take some time to establish some type of an understanding. And having worked in workforce development for so many years, there are a number of tools that are out there. The Department of Labor has some websites. One is My Skills, My Future. The other is, it's my first senior moment, My Next Move. And there are free assessments that you can take. There are all types of tools that you can utilize to figure out who you are so you can define yourself, so you can create that elevator pitch. Starting with that and creating something that you understand and practicing and just all of the things that Rhonda and I don't know whether to call you Dr. Chaz or Dr. Austin.
Either one.
But, starting to really just, work your network and continue that cycle of communication and that cycle of effort. And the good thing about LinkedIn and other platforms is as soon as you jump in, it forces you to interact. So there's so many things that come out of that, like they were saying, you just start to do something, respond to something, and it grows your network. But, how in the world can you sell something that you don't understand? So you have to define those things for yourself or redefine them now that, maybe you're at a place where you're ready to walk away from that 30-year career and do something else that you're very passionate about.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for the answers that you've shared. I think that it's so valuable for our audience. I do want to acknowledge that our audience has some questions as well. So Davina, if you could, let's move to the audience questions section. And I'll just say, I'm going to skip over the final structured question that we had, just because I've seen a few come through in chats, and I do want to acknowledge those questions. So one that was asked of our group in the chat section was, can you provide some examples of how to engage? So one of the things we've talked about is the important need for the unique selling proposition, right? So understanding who we are as people, so using a self-assessment, thinking about who our audience is, but then how do we engage with that audience? And so I'll leave it, this is an open question. Do any of you want to provide some examples of how to engage online?
I'll jump in just in terms of posting on LinkedIn. It's an interesting thing because only 2%, less than 2% of the people on LinkedIn are actually posting. And when you think of the number of people that are on there, that's a staggering number, right? And so a great way to interact is when you post something, or maybe it's not even your post, maybe it's something that Dr. Chaz posted or somebody else. And I see that somebody made a thoughtful comment or they liked the post. It's a great way to reach out to somebody. And from a marketing standpoint, what I will do is I'll reach out and I'll say, Kimberly, thank you so much for liking my post about whatever that post happened to be. I would love to just get to know you better and learn how we might be a resource for each other. To make it easy, I'm going to drop a link to my calendar. So that's a really great way to engage if you want to take it to the next level and get that appointment. And using the power of a post is one of the easiest ways to do that. So that's what I would say.
Thanks so much. Does anybody else want to respond to this question of what does it mean to be active, or how do we engage on these social platforms?
I think Rhonda covered it quite well.
Great.
I would like to add, again, my recent perspective is working with students. So an informational interview is how we, frame that. So, maybe they're introverted, maybe they're not comfortable, engaging with people, and they don't trust the process through, these platforms. Just reaching out to those who are closest to you. Not necessarily looking outside of LinkedIn, but, who are the people that you're physically in contact with somehow, through how your life is being lived at the moment. Ask them a question like, what was it like for you? Do you mind sharing your story with me? And sometimes, what they come to realize is that people like to talk and they like to share and they like to help. And when you're starting, from the basics again, sometimes you just have to put it on the other person, make them feel good about what they're doing. Ask them for their opinion, and people they like to share. They like to help.
Thank you so much. And I did notice that we had several people ask us the question that is tangential to this one, which is, if we have limited experience, meaning we're a college student and we're just developing that professional brand, and we're trying to attract an employer to consider us for a role, or we're a mid-career or late career professional seeking a career pivot, how do we establish credibility and make ourselves visible to that intended audience? So it's one thing to define the audience, but how do we create an authentic and credible brand when we have limited experience in the field we're pursuing? And so I'll open that up to everyone.
Yeah, I can address that. Fortunately, career pivoting is now more normalized. Millennials will have 7 or 8 careers. Yes, that years ago was that's verboten. There's something wrong with you. Why don't you stick with a job or a career? But now that's become the new normal. So people understand that. So we have to look at what are the transferable skills. Hey, I've been working as a college professor and I want to go into real estate. And here's what I have to offer. I'm excellent with people. I taught real estate courses in college, and I'm in the process of getting my real estate license. And then you basically have to go into your network to people who've known you and say, I'm doing something new. Any recommendations? Oh, that's really interesting. You want to be a real estate broker or a real estate agent. I have a friend who runs a real estate agency. Perhaps you could shadow them. Perhaps you could do some volunteer work, or perhaps you could intern. You also might want to look at organizations and groups in the new field you're getting into and offer to volunteer. No one turns down free work. And this is an opportunity for you to learn how it works inside the culture of that new industry, and also start building relationships with people who will give you a shot. I noticed that you've been volunteering for our group here. I have a real estate firm, and we're looking for some part-time work. Would you be willing to come in and work with us? Now you've got a leg in. Now your brand shifts to wannabe or college professor to someone who actually works in the real estate field.
If I could tag on to that, because I thought that was great. A lot of times you can ask somebody, if you already know you have the skills, but you just don't have the job and been paid for it, what you might want to do is say, you know what, I'd love to do this work for you, and I don't expect to be paid, but what I would ask is, if I did a great job, would you be willing to give me a video testimonial talking about the benefit, and allow me to actually create a case study about the work that I did for you, so that I can outline the challenge that was presented to me, the steps that I took, and the outcome that came from it. Because people are always looking for that third-party proof. And that's something you can put on the featured section of your LinkedIn profile, whether it's a video, it's a case study, it doesn't matter. The 4 words that I teach to my clients are, I need your help. The worst that someone could say is, no, I can't help you. But if you go out and you make that ask bigger than the but, right? Then there's a good chance that somebody's going to help you and give you that opportunity.
Thank you so much. Thank you to our panelists. I know there are several additional audience questions. I think we could spend a long time talking about this topic. Hopefully you'll follow our experts on LinkedIn. They all have a wonderful LinkedIn profile. If this is of interest to you, do please be sure to continue to stay close to the Business Bites series. We offer a month, twice a quarter, these types of value add volunteer sessions. I'm going to hand it back over to you, Nathan, to wrap up our time. But thank you again to our experts. We really appreciate you all being here.
Yes, thank you, Kelly. And thank you to all our panelists, Rhonda, Dr. Chaz Austin, Kimberly, for taking your time out of your day to speak with us. This was such an insightful conversation, and I think based on the engagement and questions we had, this was an incredibly valuable session for everyone who tuned in. And I could even say I was able to find this job at Hana House through LinkedIn, networking, cold messaging different kind of people. So I truly believe in all of the insightful conversation we had today. I will be dropping the feedback survey into the chat below. You could go ahead and take that right now if you can. But it will also be emailed to you to help improve our future sessions. Our next Business Bites will be coming up in March, so be on the lookout for the registration link in our follow-up email, along with the repo link to this session. And with that, have a great rest of your day, and I look forward to seeing you all next month. If you have some time, go ahead and check out Hana House in either Newport Beach or Palo Alto.
Thank you so much, Nathan. Thank you to all of our guests. I'll wrap up today with one final tip. These types of webinars are increasingly available, free interactive webinar sessions. If you are attending them, I highly encourage you to, before the call, do the following things. Take a copy of your public LinkedIn profile, take a copy of your public Twitter and any other public identity profile that you want, and a brief your elevator pitch about what you do, and have them available in a notes or chat section that you can easily add in the engaged chat, so that if you're attending one of these events, you can quickly ask somebody to connect with you in the chat feature. It's very difficult to do once you're on the call, so that's a tidbit that I would encourage you to do on future webinars. Thank you all, and have a great day.